For those of you who did not hear my name correctly, it indeed is Stalin, and does not in any way reflect my ideology. I'm from Gujarat, an odd combination for that name, I know. It reflects my father's ideology at the time I was born. I was merely 28 days old, too young to protest a gruesome name like that. My father gave me two things: a bicycle that broke in 6 years, and my name. We never lived together. He didn't give me much else, so I decided to keep the name. Do you love cinema? I love cinema too. Do you remember the scenes where the bad guy is giving hell to people, and the people are poor, helpless, and then the dashing hero comes in and single-handedly fight off the goon and his three dozen tapuris? Yeah? Exhilarating, isn't it, when you see good beat evil? Even when I was a kid, I did not identify with the hero though. I identified with the nameless, motionless, dialogueless people standing in a circle, merely witnessing, rarely participating. Not that I was not a romantic and did not dream of superpowers and flying. I did. I still do dream of flying. Only I admire and am inspired more by the birds that fly together in hundreds, forming beautiful patterns, never crashing into each other. Have you wondered how they manage that? Some flocks are millions and they don't crash. You don't see a bird drop from the sky. For me, that is a great example of cohabitation, of joint collective living. Do you know that some birds that fly in formation, like the Sarus crane that I'm told appear here, they take turns to lead the flock. Anyways, let's look at our flock. Humans. Let's begin to see how many of us are flying, how many of us are still stuck in the mud, and how many of us have yet not grown wings to fly. Let's look at some numbers. I'm told you guys do big data analysis. Here's some big data. As of last year, 1% of this country own 58.4% of the country's wealth. Their wealth increased a whopping 10% in the last 2 years alone. The top 10% of the population together own 80.7% of the country's wealth. If you look at the bottom 50%, the bottom half, they together collectively own, any guess? 2% of the country's wealth. You guys are engineers and sociologists and etc., etc. You can figure out the math behind this. I'm going to give you some numbers, some more numbers. As you hear them, try not to allow your prejudices to slot me or brand me into a specific type or a camp. Hear me through this talk, and then typecast me if you must. In the last 20 years, more than 54,000 people were killed in various armed conflicts, mostly in Kashmir and in states with very high Naxal and Maoist insurgencies, of which 20,000 people, 26,000 people were terrorists, 8,500 people security force personnel, and 20,000 civilians. Business school students make your mathematics and cost-benefit ratios of this number. About 45,000 cases of crimes were committed against scheduled castes or Dalits in this country in 2015. In the same year, more than 34,500 cases of rapes were registered. All of us know how many such cases go unregistered. Of this, 95% assailants were either a neighbor, an acquaintance, a friend, or a relative of the victim. Some people tell me that in 83% cases, the rapist is a relative. So this talk about be aware of strange men rethink that. That strange, weird person may be sitting or living right next to you. 4 lakh 80,000 people died of tuberculosis in 2015. In the period between 1947 to 2000, 65 million or 6.5 crore Indians were forcibly removed from their homes to make way for what we call development. That is more than the total population of my home state of Gujarat. So, how did we come to this? I believe that this has happened because we are afraid to know, afraid to discover new realities, afraid to be in someone else's shoes, afraid to give up our comfort of denial. And denial is a very kamini cheez. What it does is, it puts like a dystopic veneer in front of our eyes, not allowing us to problematize. Students of sociology, professors in sociology will tell you, if you don't problematize, you don't find a solution. In fact, if you're interested in finding solution to any problem, whether putting a rover on the moon, or curing cancer, or treating people with disabilities with respect, the first essential step is to acknowledge, accept the problem. The only thing you get by denying that this problem exists is perpetuation of the problem. And I believe it's time for us to be vulnerable. I know. We were all taught the exact opposite. Don't be vulnerable, particularly men. Don't be vulnerable. I know that vulnerability creates pain, but I'll tell you, it also creates love and creativity. It definitely creates learning. Now, if you were one of those concerned type, you care, you want to empathize, you would want information, right? You would want stories, correct? Now, if you were looking towards mainstream Indian media as a source of your unbiased, relevant information, then I would say you're courageous and daring, and that you are extremely dexterous in maneuvering split screens and even splitted up personalities. I mean, you're engineers, some of you, right? Decode the news in that. Now, how did the mainstream media come to this? There are several reasons why the mainstream media is the way it is today. Some of us find ourselves holding our head between our hands in several different difficult positions, like, oh my gosh, what am I watching? There is a reason behind that. And one reason could be understood by a study done by Center for Studies of Developing Societies, CSDS, right next door in Delhi, 10 years back. They surveyed the social profile of key decision makers in national mainstream media, only top decision makers. So chief reporters, editors, chief editors, etc., and found that Hindu upper caste men, who account for 8% of the total general population, hold 71% of these positions. Perhaps true for your campus as well. On the other hand, people from the other backward communities, who account for 40% of the population, hold 4% of these positions, and there is not one tribal or Dalit key decision maker in India's mass media. This was 10 years back. Situation hasn't changed, unfortunately, even today. What these figures tell us is who controls media, not that. Who controls, therefore, discourses? Who decides what is important? Who decides? Whose agendas decide what should be discussed today in News Hour? It also tells us why there is a certain outrage on some issues and certain complete lack of outrage on certain other issues. Right? Now, you would say, I don't look at TV or newspapers. I'm a new age child or a person. I have my phone and I'm always on social media. And I use social media platforms to be informed and to inform, remind you that you are one amongst the lucky, privileged few to be on the right side of the digital divide in this country. The other figures for social media hate the word penetration by region. Look at the figure in South Asia, 15%. Our nationwide breakup of this is not any romantic for India, it's about 16 or 17%. Now, this is not surprising, these figures are not surprising because our region, South Asia and Africa, have the lowest internet access in the world. So we will be there, but we are not quite yet there. So all I'm saying is that if you think that all your Facebook battles and Twitter trolling and anti-trolling and whatever else that you do on social media is important, but is in kind of an echo chamber at the moment. Now, is everything dim and smoggy like the dystopic Delhi climate? Or is there a way out for those who are ready to be vulnerable, for those who are ready to learn, for those who are ready to take informed position, for those who refuse to be mute spectators of democracy? And the good news is there is a way. And that way, my friends, is to listen to the stories and opinions of those who live the realities that I just showed you in some slides. If you, my work, besides making documentary films, is to, and train and teach, is to lead a non-profit called Video Volunteers, headquartered out of Goa. And we train communities from the margin to create their own media content. In the 7 years back, myself and my 33 other colleagues set up a network called India Unheard. Today, that network is 290 people, with more than 250 people reporting from 192 districts, which are spread across 20 states. And together, they have created 5,700 plus videos. So someone was asking me, why didn't you make a film after I made India Untouched 10 years back? This is why I don't make films. I'm a Gujarati. The arithmetic doesn't add up, because in the last 15 years of my filmmaking, I made 18 films, and 7 years of working with these communities, 5,700 films. It does not, hisab baise nahi in Gujarati. If you were to look at these stories, and you go to the website and see these stories, you'll understand how corporations get away with large-scale environmental degradations. You'll understand how untouchability is still quite rampantly practiced in this country, and how the law enforcement agencies almost turn a blind eye to it. You will know how 1 million people every year get displaced from their homes, and why communities are protesting mining and other extractive industries. You will know how patriarchy teaches us to be sexist and misogynist, and how some of them are breaking these stereotypes and power structures. You will know how the state brands people like me as Maoists and Naxals, and then rob us of our dignity and rights. Every time I step into Chhattisgarh, I step into Odisha, I step into Jharkhand, I step into Srinagar, and all those places I have my offices, there's always invariably an IB officer who will call and say, "Kya plan hai aapka is baar?" Not that I'm bothered with it, but I'm just giving you the scenario. If this was happening in Srinagar, then this cannot happen in Srinagar, by the way. If you look at these videos, you'll understand why Kashmiris think that India has occupied their lands. You'll understand why they believe that Indian armed forces are the exact opposite of saviors. We need to have the courage and the patience to listen. Now, these reports that we produce are eye-openers, but we don't stop merely by making them and publishing them. We take it back to the communities, mobilize them to act. We show it back to the local government officials and chase them till we solve those issues. At an average, we produce and publish 120 reports a month. We're able to solve 25 of them every month. So if you go to the website, you will see 1,200 solution stories of how people have struggled and made things happen. Like they've changed long-standing issues of water, sanitation, no doctors in PHCs, teachers who don't go to school, teachers who have not paid for 35 years. Yes, those people exist. 35 years, teachers have not been paid. ASHA workers who are on paper, not on the ground. Ambulances that ferry politicians instead of patients, all kinds of issues that we have been solving. I believe that these reports will shake you out of your complacent positions. It will make you at least think twice before you shoot a messenger like me, before you say protesters are anti-nationals. People who hold views different than ours are either leftists or anti-nationals. With a name like Stalin, definitely a leftist. He should be branded an anti-national. You won't imagine the number of college campuses that have cancelled my lectures and my public lectures. The last was IIT Madras. They officially invited me, cancelled me out only because the kind of work I do, but of course the students are students and they hold a parallel conference and invite me to the very same campus. So I'm coming from there 3 days back. I was at IIT Madras thanks to the students. I believe that those who expose wrongdoings in society, those who expose abuse of power, are heroes of democracy. Don't give them a Bharat Ratna, but pat their backs. No, don't give them some fancy award, but make sure you're grateful to them. They do so because they believe in a better world, a more peaceful, just and humane world. They believe that democracy is far too precious to be left alone in the hands of a political party or a government or a bureaucracy or armed forces. They believe that democracy is everybody's responsibility. Nobody, no one is above the rules of accountability. No one. There are no holy cows in a democracy. Everybody is under the scanner. So, I invite you to rethink the 3 wise monkeys made popular by Mahatma Gandhi, because our collective future is dependent on how vigilant we are, a collective hope and collective future. Unlike what we were told, we must speak and report on evil. We must listen to the experiences that people have gone through, evil experiences that people have gone through, so that we understand the cause and effect. We must speak out and amplify others like me who speak out, so that we together form a critical mass that is required to make this world a better place. And in that world, people, particularly people on the margin, will not be a mute spectator, but a key actor in shaping democracy, in shaping our future. You guys have been sitting here and patiently taking in all kinds of talks and presentations with varied range of people. And you have not booed out a single one. You've only clapped. You know what that means? You are part of that collective future. You have that gene to empathize. Keep that up. That's our future. Don't be a mute spectator of democracy. Thank you so much.